Hey, good day, everybody. It's Russ. I'm the Executive Director of the National Center for the Biotechnology Workforce, located here at Forsyth Technical Community College in lovely Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And this is SciTech, and I'm really excited today. Trevor, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Russ. Thank you for having me.
Great. Trevor, we have Dr. Ronald Hann with us today. Ron, how are you today?
I am doing wonderful, thanks.
Great. Ron, thanks for joining us. My understanding is you're the Director of Technology Integration at the Wake Forest Institute for Regenerative Medicine. You want to just basically tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. Because this is a science program, often people ask, why are you excited about science? And to me, believe it or not, it actually goes all the way back to when I was in kindergarten and I watched the first lunar landings. Remember being in a classroom and they brought the black and white TVs in and they said, hey, this is important. You want to watch this? And that really kind of started to set the azimuth for my future career. And initially, I thought I wanted to be a medical doctor, and I studied chemistry and biology as a double major, but later realized that I like chemistry more. Academically, I've got an associate degree from Richard Bland College, a bachelor's and master's from the College of William and Mary, and then a PhD in organic chemistry from the University of Virginia. And I think maybe some of your listeners who are, thinking about community college or in community college, I am a community college alum and very proud of that. I know when I came out of high school, I couldn't afford school, and I got into every school I applied to, but I just didn't have the money for it. And community college and working at the same time ended up being an option that helped me get started on my science career and, led me to where I am today. It actually during the second year of community college, again, because of finances, I ended up joining the Army Reserve to help fund that second year of school. And that turned into a great decision because later when I went on to the College of William and Mary, that landed me a 2-year ROTC scholarship that continued to fund my education in science. And obviously the Army is always interested in having smart people being members of the team. Upon commissioning, the Army allowed me to continue on what was called an education delay, and I got the master's in chemistry before going into active duty. And in my role in the Army, I served as a chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear defense officer. So basically, it's like hazmat and EMT and response all packaged into one. Some cases, you're almost like a Mr. Spock to a commander on the battlefield. Had a lot of great years and experiences in the Army. I spent 27 years in the Army. The first assignment was spectacular. I actually went in a nuclear missile battalion into Germany during the Cold War. And as you recall, that was a pretty tense time with us in the former Soviet Union. And while they're deployed off to Operation Desert Storm, my first kid was born. Later came back to the States and did a lot of great activities with the Army. Went to Operation Iraqi Freedom. I got an opportunity to teach at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point twice, and West Point actually paid for my PhD program. So, being in the service actually paid off. Following my time in the Army, I then retired as a colonel in 2014 and became a senior executive in the Department of Defense, one of about 1,200 in all of the Department of Defense. And my focus in that role was on chemical and biological defense and providing science and technology prototypes and candidate technologies to support our warfighters so that they could defend themselves, so they could survive, fight, and win if they're exposed to chemical and biological hazards on the battlefield. I worked at an organization called the Defense Threat Reduction Agency at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, for about 8.5 years in that role, and really had some spectacular opportunities to be impactful on the national front. If you go back just a little bit in history, you may recall in 2014 that we destroyed Syria's declared chemical weapon stockpile. And the program that I supported actually created the prototype devices that went onto the ship out in the Mediterranean, destroyed 600 metric tons of toxic hazardous material in the space of about 42 days. Also, while I was in that position, I got to work and support the Ebola outbreak that was going on in 2016. And my program was the one that developed the first diagnostic for Ebola Zaire. You may remember the Miracle Cure ZMAP, a monoclonal antibody therapeutic, actually came out of my program. And then also we created the first of the Ebola Zaire vaccine in collaboration with GlaxoSmithKline. Of course, crises never end. In 2017, you recall that ISIS was producing mustard agent. This is it's called a vesicant. It causes blistering and blindness in some cases if you're exposed to your skin. And we helped create ways of tracking them down in the desert and taking them out of production. And then finally, before I departed defense, helped work with the COVID outbreak as well. Did a lot of different activities supporting Health and Human Services and our national response to that. And that was really part of it. I come to Winston-Salem and Wake Forest Institute for Regenerative Medicine, having worked with Dr. Tony Atala previously as part of my chemical and biological defense program activities. He was one of the preeminent scientists in our program. And he had always said, if you have an idea of leaving government, let me know. And when he heard that I was thinking about leaving, he made me an offer that was great to come down here and really help out his program here at WFIRM.
Well, Ron, I want to just thank you so much for your service to the country. Amazing service, and oh my gosh, what a career that you've had so far. And maybe lots more adventures to come in the area of regenerative medicine. Ron, thinking about that, and you're basically interfacing now with community college students, and you were one. The question I have for you is there anything that you would like to share for students, thinking back to your start and the career?
I would say that the big thing is don't give up. Community college offers you an opportunity to do it at your own pace, and that provides flexibility so that it doesn't just go away. You don't have to go to a 4-year school first. And I actually, within my family, for my kids, I told them I would like you to do community college first, get an associate degree, and take as long as it takes for you to figure out what you want to do, and keep your grades up, and we'll get you into that 4-year school to close out your bachelor's program that will really set the stage for your success in the future. And I just think that the community college environment provides that space where you can really kind of figure out, what do I want to do? And it's at a cost that's not going to break the bank like many 4-year schools do. And that just is a great benefit that many people don't really appreciate until much later in life, when they don't have that big student loan that they're paying off. But it also gives you an opportunity, if you want to work, develop some income, get some experience that helps you later in life that you might not have been able to do after getting your bachelor's degree. So I think it's a good position to be in. It's a great decision to make. And I find a lot of people who come out of community college programs are very successful because they had to fight a little bit to get through a program, because there's a lot of things that were distracting them from being able to study. And because of that, they learn organizational skills, they learn how to time manage, but they also know how to accomplish tasks in an appropriate time frame. That some folks don't always get that. So I think it's a great experience.
Ron, thanks so much for that advice for students. I really appreciate it. And I think the people that will be watching this will be really excited. I'm going to turn it over to Trevor. He's got a few questions for you.
Sure. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Russ. So, so Ron, kind of going off the previous question a bit, do you have any advice that you would give the students who might be potentially interested in pursuing a career in science through the military?
Sure, absolutely. There's a lot of programs that people don't know about within the government for how you can become a Department of Defense civilian, or just a civilian in one of the other interagency partners like Health and Human Services or Center for Disease Control, FBI, and so forth. The first thing you can do if you're still in school and not quite ready to get a job is just go into Google and do a keyword search on like DoD STEM internships, STEM, so science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And you'll be surprised, I think, by the number of opportunities that are actually available out there to kind of stick your toe into government and see, are there some interesting opportunities that might apply to the science background or science field of study that you're in. And sometimes what you'll find, agencies will do internships, and then later, as they're hiring for vacant positions, if you had been an intern previously, they will remember you and you actually score higher on the competitive nature of getting hired into a job. But yeah, that's one thing to do. And then there's a lot of other opportunities in work that actually may even fund your school as well. One of those programs is called the Department of Defense SMART program. The SMART scholarship is a scholarship for service program, is a combined educational and workforce development opportunity for STEM students. It offers scholarships for undergraduate, master's, and doctoral students pursuing a STEM degree, and offers two different scholarship opportunities. One that the Start SMART scholarship itself, and then the other is called the Ronald V. Dellums Memorial Start SMART Scholarship. And what's pretty cool about this one is all of the scholarship recipients receive full tuition, annual stipends, internships, and a guaranteed civilian employment with the Department of Defense after you graduate. The applications for those open annually, starting around August 1st and go on through December. And one of the things I'll do is I'll send this to Russ as a link for folks to look into. In my former program, I typically had one or two SMART Scholar programs, people who were going through either a master's or a PhD program that I knew as I had program vacancies, people were retiring, or I was going to have an opportunity to hire into a position that we could pre-program SMART students to be doing their degree. And as they come out, do internships with them in the summer. And as they graduate, then put them right into a job. And there's a lot of different organizations within the Department of Defense that take advantage of that opportunity. Also within government, it doesn't matter what your science discipline is. There's going to be a Department of Defense laboratory that could use your skills. In my previous position, I had used the U.S. Army Developmental Command's Chem Biocenter as one of the primary Department of Defense laboratories to do a lot of science and technology research. They're located up in Edgewood, Maryland. And they do all kinds of aspects of testing materials and looking at hazardous materials and understanding toxicology, understanding how to clean up after a disaster, a wide variety of activities. I also worked with a lab, if you ever saw the movie Hot Zone, the U.S. Army Medical Research Institute for Infectious Disease. This is the laboratory in the Army that has the biosafety level 4 laboratory, where you can work with those really exotic, deadly diseases and learn how to develop therapeutics and vaccines so that they won't be a problem for the military. And then also worked with U.S. Army Medical Research Institute, Chemical Defense, the Navy Research Lab, Army Research Lab. There's somewhere around 25 different joint and service-related Department of Defense laboratories that do research in every category of STEM fields. And then outside of Department of Defense, the Department of Energy has a large number of laboratories that support STEM fields. Obviously, the Department of Energy laboratories are the ones that create the nuclear bombs for the nation, but it's not just nuclear. For example, Los Alamos National Lab and Lawrence Livermore National Lab have very strong biodefense research capabilities. Pacific Northwest National Lab has a great AI/ML capability that we leverage many times in Department of Defense. So Department of Energy is a great resource as well, not just Department of Defense, but Department of Energy. And then there's really an alphabet soup of organizations within the government that have laboratories. So FDA, NIH, NIAID, CDC, FDI. I mean, you just go down the list. Many of them have a need for people with backgrounds in STEM career fields, sometimes just to be in the laboratory and sometimes just to manage scientific programs. If you're interested in finding a job in the U.S. government, really the best place to start is there's an online job board, and just look up USA Jobs usajobs.gov, and you can put in what your career field is and see what's available right now. And then once you get into competitive service within the U.S. government, then even more jobs become available after that. Many opportunities to find jobs in government, and very many exciting roles that you can play as a STEM scientist within the government, as well as the Department of Defense.
Yes, thank you, Ron. It's definitely some excellent advice, and also sounds like a lot of just really like exciting opportunities that are available. So thank you for sharing all that. So you did kind of cover this quite a bit in your previous answer, but are there any internships or work study options that are available for students in places like the DTRA?
Well, there are, and again, the best thing to do is just do a Google search under like DoD internships, and you'll see a large number of opportunities come up. Each of the services, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, will have opportunities, as well as some of the agencies, some Missile Defense Agency, Defense Threat Reduction Agency. They go down all the agencies within the Department of Defense, and many of them have a internship program. And you just need to get ahead of the curve in terms of find it early, get the application in on time. Being the Department of Defense, when they say have it in by noon, they mean have it in by noon. If it's 12:01, they won't accept it. So that'll be a good advice for you. Be on time.
Thank you, Ron. Excellent. So let's fast forward a bit now. So currently you're in Winston-Salem working with AFIRM and WFIRM. Can you tell us a little bit more about what these organizations are and kind of what they do?
Well, primarily I work with WFIRM. AFIRM is a separate kind of project activity. I can talk a little bit about that. At WFIRM, I am the Director of Technology Integration, or Technology Integration Officer, and my role is primarily focused on like team building and strategic outreach. I mean, if you think about what I did previously in government, that really kind of points to the kind of collaborations and team building that I'm trying to do and trying to bring here to Winston-Salem. Now, it's a little bit tricky when you talk about I am an integration officer, because it's not the traditional information technology integration, but more about I'm trying to help create teams and collaborative efforts that will lead to commercialization opportunities within the institute and outside. So in other words, I'm trying to link up the right researchers with the right industry partners, and then find funding resources and government sponsors in some cases to help move the technology out of labs and into clinical and commercial space. So helping look for those kind of programs. AFIRM is the Armed Forces Institute for Regenerative Medicine. That actually is one of the programs that WFIRM runs on behalf of the Defense Health Agency. And in that role, we are effectively a consortium integrator who brings in specific companies and activities to help support specific needs coming out of the Defense Health Agency. Ken Bertram is the program lead for that activity. And, I don't want to step on the toes. He might be a great person to interview to tell you a little bit more about AFIRM. But in many cases, the technologies that we develop in support of AFIRM are things that are going to help our wounded warriors. How do we improve their quality of life, after having been in a conflict, have been injured, and things of that nature? So that's kind of where you would find in AFIRM. Basically, as the technology integration officer, though, I work with academia, industry, and government to create those, win-win opportunities. How do we create these large opportunities where everyone gets what they want? And while I'm still working on the big wins, I've been here right at 2 years. I've created already several strong collaborations that over time are going to lead to exceptional science outcomes for the Institute. Now, I also work with the Regenerative Medicine Development Organization, or affectionately called ReMDO. It's the associated or affiliated nonprofit that works with WFIRM and has many of the activities that support the Piedmont, Triad, Regenerative Medicine engine ecosystem. So as an Army leader and former senior executive service member, I bring a lot of leadership, entrepreneurial, and organizational skills to the ecosystem. And in the role of helping the nonprofit, I use those skills on a regular basis to create systems and processes that will allow for growth and try and avoid the hiccups. As you go from a small organization to a larger organization to a larger organization, things change in organizational structure and how you do processes. And in my former job, I managed about $1 billion a year budget, had 1,000 people that I was like ultimately the top line supervisor, and managed about 900 projects at any given time. So WFIRM is in the process of growing towards that kind of size. And having had that perspective, I can bring many of those skills here to the nonprofit and help them as they continue their growth. Some of the products I've worked on in the last year and a half include an onboarding guide for the companies coming into the ecosystem. We want to make sure when they come in, that they know where they're going and where the lights are and who to talk to when they have a problem. Also created a test bed operations guide for our academic partners. So as part of the ReMDO nonprofit, there's an innovation accelerator and a test bed where industry donates equipment into an area within the research building here that others are allowed to use to help develop their science. And it's just a great opportunity for everybody to use. And it's being leveraged right now by the NSF Engine team and the academic partners throughout this region, the Piedmont Triad region. So some of the tools I've been developing are, how do we bring people from different organizations who have different rule sets into a single space and make sure that we can collaborate nicely and get positive results. And that, again, we end up with a win-win situation where everyone gets what they need out of it. And we've already are seeing that this is providing mechanisms for crosstalk and collaboration between academic and industry partners that we've not been able previously to achieve. I just think that's a positive success story.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for telling us more about these organizations and some of the different things that you do with them. That's great. All right, so for our last question, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Russ.
Hey, thanks, Trevor. Thanks, Ron. Ron, fabulous overview. Ron, this question is a bonus question. How's that?
Great.
We like
That sounds great.
we like bonus questions in SciTech. Ron, so you were a young guy, and you were getting a community college degree, and then you did smart things like work towards the armed forces and so forth, and you served. So put yourself in the shoes of a young person today. That they've actually they're thinking about what to do. They're probably pretty bright, or maybe they're very competent in doing the kinds of things that they would like to do. But at the same time, like you, there's some barriers. What kind of recommendation would you give them? And not everybody is a PhD, not everybody's an MS, and not everybody's a BS, right? And so a lot of people work very well at the associate's level, and some people, even high school is the way to go for them. Do you have any kind of advice as a person who has literally run $1 billion budget and employed thousands of people? I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, if you don't mind.
Sure. Well, I'll start off with something I always like to talk about. I call it the pain principle. Literally pain, because pain is a great teacher. But when you're thinking about your life, you really holistically, you want to get as much pain done up front as you possibly can, so the rest of your life is a little bit easier. And really, when you're in school, that's where it's more mental pain, not physical pain. But really, that grind is at the beginning of your life. You want to first find out, what do you really like? You need to explore and try things out and find what niche you're going to fit in. And you need to find something that's got a market. Honestly, I love pianists. I tried playing piano when I was a kid, and somewhere around, played piano. I still play piano now. But one of the things I found out was, like, Franz Liszt could span 13 keys, and I will never be able to master a Liszt piece of music because my fingers aren't long enough. So yeah, I can be really good at it, but I may not be the master. But you got to find, what is the niche in life that you really enjoy? Because if you enjoy something, when you do your work, it's not really work, it's more like fun. And people are paying you to be fun. But to get there, you really need to go through the pain and trouble and struggle up front and get that knocked out. And tied to that is a little bit of self-discipline. You really need to focus on where do you want to go in life and what are things I need to do. And don't get distracted by the video games and the parties and all the social activity and all that kind of stuff. It was really tough for me my junior year. I went into physical chemistry, and we start talking quantum mechanics and thermodynamics, and we get into all this calculus-based kind of science. And I'm much more of a physical person than a mathematical person. And that was probably the hardest class I took throughout college, but I forced myself to go through it. I got the professor's ear when I just didn't understand what was going on. I talked to my classmates, was very persistent. That really was the Army part of me. I didn't give up. I continued fighting through it. And interestingly enough, the professor at this course, I remember at the beginning saying, I grade on a pure scale. If I give 3 A's, I will give 3 F's. And I ended up getting a C+ in that class. That was the only C I got in my entire college career. But I was so proud of that C+ because that was the gate that helped me get through the final, career and into a master's program, and later into a PhD. And, I went into my PhD late. About 12 years after I got my master's, I went into the PhD program. And part of my onboarding back into graduate school was I had to take the American Chemical Society proficiency tests, which included the physical chemistry exam for ACS. And I actually scored greater than 60% on that test 14 years after I had taken the course. I'll tell you, it was very traumatic, but it stuck. So really kind of the advice I give is find what makes you happy, explore now why it's not as consequential, and it's cheaper at the community college level. Honestly, it's so much better than when you get to a 4-year school because it adds up quick. Find out what you like, make sure there's a demand for what you want to do, put the effort and get the pain out of the way up front so you can have a less painful life afterwards.
Ron, I think that's great advice. I think I'm reflecting on the pain. I'm feeling it right now. Trevor, are you feeling the pain?
Kinda, yeah.
I think I think that's well spoken, Ron. Trevor, any ideas, thoughts?
Well, I guess I just want to close and say, I think it's just really cool learning about, your story, Ron, and just kind of all the different, opportunities and just organizations and whatnot that you mentioned. And I think it's going to be some really good, information for our viewers and whatnot. So thank you for sharing all that.
And Ron, I want to thank you too. You and I have known each other since you come into Winston, and I think we have to reflect a little bit here and thank Dr. Tony Atala, for bringing you to Winston. This is just tremendous to have people like yourselves come to Winston and help build the new economy, which is going to be very exciting with respect to technologies and especially regenerative medicine. And, we're very, very excited, and thank you for everything you're doing for our community. And thanks for the advice for our students. Really appreciate it.
Russ, I really appreciate the opportunity to get in front of a mic and a camera a little bit and tell you a little about my story. And I agree. Thanks to Dr. Tala for the invite to come down. I think Winston-Salem has become really my favorite new hometown. I love it here. It's a great life, and looking forward to bringing some impactful change, with the community and ecosystem. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.